Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the single player Let's Play series. So last episode we built out what is essentially just a giant Dexter's laboratory underneath our main base here. And by the way, you can see that our drives here are not doing so hot, so we might need to make some new ones. Why don't we quickly do that? Let's see. Maybe a 4K or what are we're using 16Ks right now, right? So maybe we get into auto crafting today and then we can use auto crafting to go ahead and get these modules auto crafted. That way we can much more easily get this stuff rolling, because I think this is going to be kind of a pain to do otherwise. So let's see. Step one, I guess, for crafting is to just make a crafter. Pretty straightforward. The crafter here is not too terribly difficult to make. We probably need some more advanced processors. Let's see. How are we doing on slime? Not great. That's okay. We also have goop. Oh, we have lots of goop. Okay, we're good there. We are aplenty on the goop, so let's go smelt some of that up really quickly. And in the meantime, I can start making the other components here. So to do the binding, the processor binding here, we'll just do this. I'll make a good bit. And then we'll do another, we'll grab the crafter. Go ahead and bookmark that as well. And so the crafter is going to allow us to store different recipes in it using a couple of patterns and a couple other things that we can create with it. How are we doing on diamonds? Okay, let's do maybe like 15. Don't think that the Amazon tablet would like to be smelted up today, thank you. And as we get those done, we should be getting a little bit closer to getting ourselves at least a good handful of crafters. Did I make 15? I should have made an even number. I don't know why I did 15. Wait, no, that actually does make sense. Whatever. We'll make another one. Because I had one, but not two of them. So, if we look at the crafter, we're going to need a machine casing. Let's go ahead and grab a few of those. Maybe like 8, I think, should be fine. So we can do that, and then that will get us one crafter. We're gonna need way more of the different construction components, though, if we're gonna do that. Let's see. So we're gonna need 8 of these. And if we look at quartz again, 8 of those. Go ahead and get those, and there we go. And if we wanted to make one more, which we may, that's there. That's an option. Anyway, so the crafter is like the fundamental component here for the devices that we're going to need to use to auto-craft with. So coming down here, I actually forgot something. I'm really regretting not having a speed upgrade in here. Anyways, we need to get cables. We're also going to need a pattern and a pattern grid. So the pattern itself is made like so. These are pretty straightforward to make. Then the pattern grid is just a grid, which we've seen before. Been there, done that, love it. Combined with a pattern, like so. We'll go and make another one. And I think the pattern grid will be good enough for the downstairs area for now. Because we could always put a grid like right here. Right? And then we could just run cabling straight up and use facades. Right. Not far enough back. I'm dumb. Yeah. We gotta do... We might actually have to do something completely different. Let's see. So if we have... If we have this here, we should be able to run a line down, and we should probably do that anyway. Just have a line that goes straight down the middle of our basement here. And if we go down here, that was not what I wanted to do at all. We still good on the floor names? We are. Okay. Gotta work around a couple of little devices here and there, but you can see we're at the back of our deep slate stairs here, so that's pretty dang perfect if you ask me. We will, of course, need to change that out a little bit. Not too much work here really needs to be done, though. That's actually relatively nice. So we'll just go straight down. Go ahead and fill in that little block there, and that block there. And if we go all the way around, yeah, that's not that bad of a bend. We will end up right here, which is good. We will drop it down, of course, as well. But what we're going to have is just have a big old circle of crafters here for now. We will eventually have a multi-block construct, but honestly, it is way easier to make said multi-block construct once you have at least one little miniature setup for auto crafting. So I'm going to wait until we do, because I think that'll just make our lives a lot easier. And so let's go ahead and clean all of this up. I know it is just a little bit dark. I do apologize. And we could just run it right here in the middle. Would probably be fine enough. And you'll see they all powered on. And so now this little pattern grid here still needs to be hooked up somewhere. I also need to fix the interior of this room. Like so. But we could probably pretty easily put in a pattern grid here. I think would be just fine. And then we'll just come down here, grab this cable line, and eventually we'll probably put a pattern grid somewhere a little more convenient, because this is pretty out of the way. But we can at least from here grab stuff out of our inventory, and we can start to make things, make patterns if we wanted to. We can do a handful of really pretty helpful use, or handful of pretty helpful things. But at this stage, I think it'd be easiest to just kind of go ahead and clean up a couple of things and leave that down there so that we can do our auto crafting with it. Let's see, how are we? I think that looks okay. That should be fine enough. Oh, come on. I'm really not liking these doors. I may put them back as normal doors. And right, we needed you to also have a facade. So let's do this and then that. Doesn't look perfect, but this will stack high enough up at some point that it won't really matter. Okay, so we have a slot here for patterns. Let's change this up a little bit. Search box mode, normal is fine. Order by mod ID like usual. And so if we wanted to start auto crafting, we can teach it some of the basics. So for example, we can't teach it a machine recipe with this setup, but we can teach it how to make machine casings. We can also teach it how to make all of these guys, these kind of annoying recipes here. So we can do those, and all we have to do is encode them. But possibly one of the most important and most practical recipes to encode is how to make patterns. And then you just put them in here. And whenever they're in here, you can actually see what the pattern will craft. And whenever you hold shift, if you're not in a crafter inventory, it will also do the same thing. So you can always see if you don't know what it is. And now if I come in here and ask for patterns, you'll see it shows up and it says craft. So I can make 20 of them. Hit start and it'll make 20 of them. So at this point, there are a lot of automated crafting recipes that I think would be helpful to make. So let me go ahead and get that made up, because there are a bunch. And then we'll get into some of the more interesting components of this. All right, so I've got quite a few grid or pattern components put together and placed in our various grids, our various crafters rather. I do have a couple more still. And at this point, I'm at a point where I want to start making the storage. So let us get into that. For some reason, I find that sometimes I have to click out of the inventory for this grid to stop selecting. So I may end up putting it onto GAEI synchronized. We'll see. But if I wanted to get started, I could do a 1K storage part pretty easily, and then we'll just move it up from there. And we can do this all very, very, very easily. So let's go up to 16 for now. I don't really think we're going to go for anything much bigger than that at the moment. But now with that in there, if I requested a 16K storage part, you're going to see it's going to show me every single thing that is required to make that. I'm going to need 36 silicon, and I have 36. I'm going to need 13 redstone, I have 13. I'm going to need 12 basics, 4, etc. I have all of these things. Now, if I requested 14 of them, it's going to tell me exactly how many I'm missing, exactly how many are currently available, so that if it says I'm missing something, I at least know that it detects the ones that I may already have. and it's a lot easier that way. I am curious to see if I can get 2. I can get away with 2, so let's make 2. And this is going to happen pretty quickly, because these crafters are no slouches. There are quicker ways. You can obviously put some speed upgrades in these various crafters using these upgrade slots, but honestly, I think that for the most part, these are just fine. I'm going to have to encase these on my own still. That is the only downside of this configuration, is I will have to go through and do the enclosure on my own, but I've never had a problem with this because this process here is not a common process. This is not one that I use or do very often. And so I will just quickly toss that in there, and now we have extra storage space. Of course, you know, I can just as easily hop up there if I wanted to, but the elevator's fun. So this is a simple crafting setup here, right? This isn't all that complicated, and I did make 8 of these, but I think I'm really only going to need maybe a few, because I'm going to tear the rest of these out, and let's grab some of that deep slate, because I want to automate some more already. My thirst for recipe automation has started, and this is where things get both fun and also kind of dangerous, because you may run into points where you're like, I don't really see a point in making this manually. And that is, of course, a completely valid take, but not one that I really subscribe to all that often. So I wanted to see about getting a couple of recipes automated and seeing how we can do that. So I think one of the biggest ones that I'd like to have automated would be smelting and pulverizing recipes. And from there, who really knows what else? There are still quite a handful of things that we could configure from there. And I wanted to show you how to do machine crafting recipes because there are a lot of them. So I think the biggest one to try to automate at this particular juncture would definitely be some of these, especially you right there. From there, though, I'm not really sure. I am not really sure. We may... I don't know. It would take a lot of configuration to get this set up ideally, so maybe we wait for that guy. This guy, however, we could pretty easily automate. We've got our wiring right there, so that's not too terrible to do. All we need is a chute or something that will accept a input. So if we did like a hopper into a chute, I should theoretically be able to take... Actually, I've got 1 copper ore, so that's perfect. I should, in theory, be able to take something like this chute right here, point it right into here, make sure my magnet's off, and do this, and that's going to drop directly in. So if that works, I wonder if that fast hopper just got deleted. Nope, okay, it was not. So since that works, that tells me that we have the ability to auto craft much more easily than I was expecting, which is ideal. There is a problem, though, at least a minor problem in my eyes, and that is the fact that the chute is up here. And you know what's not up here? My refined storage wiring. So this gives me a great opportunity to actually talk about another mod. Woohoo! But this will actually let us get into it. I think it'll be fun. The mod is called Entangled, and there is an entangled block here. This recipe is not too terribly difficult. You can see it is just a handful of simple things. And this is the last thing that we had in our Fluxical Evolution chapter. But I was waiting to make this because we haven't needed it yet. And I really hate to just craft things to complete a quest. I did that a lot in the Enigmatica series, and I am ashamed. So I don't want to do that. But if I take my wrench here and right-click, you can see I have selected the chute. Now, if I were to come, maybe, I don't know, right here, put a crafter facing upwards, and you'll see why in just a moment. And then we put our entangled block down. You'll see nothing's happening. This is just a boring block, and it says unbound at the top. But if I right-click with this wrench... What's that? It says it's bound to a chute. And so I believe, I don't know if this is still the case, if I look at it, yeah, you can see just vaguely that it highlights the location of what it's reflecting, or where it's reflecting. So what we can do is yoink the connection that we should have over here. Where's the block? There's the block, okay. I'm actually really confused. Where is that? Oh, okay, it's right here. So we should have a wire, yep, right there. Perfect. Perfecto. So with that wire joint right here, we can borrow this cable and probably just extend it right along over here. Just like so. I'm going to try to fill in as much of this as possible still, because I don't want all this extra space wasted. And if we hook this guy up. Come on. Oh, I don't have any cables. Duh. Cable. So if I hook this up like so, and then, you know, clean up our mess a little bit, you'll see it is online. And so now my thoughts here, my questions and concerns as well, are how is this going to show up in our pattern grid? Which I don't think is actually really that valid of an issue. But most importantly, we want to get our recipes set up in the first place. We're also going to use this to automatically ore process, but we will get to that in a moment. I'm beginning to wonder if we might want a couple of extras. We'll see of these guys here, because it's kind of getting annoying already, having to run back and forth. We're going to be out of glass. Well, that is, my friends, why we're getting into this in the first place. Let's do 10. Gosh, okay, let's do 5. There we go. So, if we wanted to get glass, we're going to need sand. And you see, I only have 37 sand. That's not perfectly ideal, but we can make sand by throwing in gravel. And by making gravel, we can throw in, I think, yeah, deep slate or normal cobblestone. So let's do that. Let's take deep slate cobble, because I've got a ton of it, and teach you how to do that. Well, this is weird. This is a crafting grid. This is going to emulate a crafting grid. So if I do, like, this, that's going to make a furnace. Well, that's not helpful, because I'm trying to tell you, hey, I want to put in one thing and put out another. So we have to click on this processing box, and we don't need fluid, so we're not going to tick on that. And if I just right click or hit F for me to look at the uses, we're going to go here, and you'll see that it is a 1-to-1 recipe, and it knows that it is a processing recipe, as you can see in the tooltip. So that means it is a machine recipe. It's only used for machines. Now, if I take that gravel and look at the uses for you, we're going to go to the crusher, and you'll see that the crusher is going to give us sand 100% of the time. This flint output, we're going to left click to ignore, or right click, shift click to ignore, because there's a chance of getting that. And so since there's a chance, we can't guarantee the output. And so if ever we use a recipe that requires flint, it may break, because it expects flint to be made from putting 1 gravel into the crusher, and flint may not always be made. So it'll just get stuck because it doesn't know. What you can do is kind of stockpile instead. It just depends, though. So if I right-click on this, you'll see it says entangled block at the top, which is good to know. And if I come over here and put in our cobble deep slate to gravel and our gravel to sand recipe, we should now be able to see a recipe for gravel. If I Control Shift left click, it'll bring up the crafting menu for items that already have a count. So like I already have sand. If I take all the sand out, it'll say craft. If I put it in, it'll say 37. But if I Control Shift left click, I can bring up the prompt to craft sand. Let's craft 3 stacks of it. Actually, we're going to run into an issue before we do that. Let us grab a dimensional chest. Let us put the dimensional chest right here. And let us set this to frequency 1. Yep, so anything that goes in here will get sorted back into our system, because we have to fulfill the auto crafting recipe, or else it will also get stuck. So if the recipe is input to the chute, that's great. But if it doesn't come full circle back into the system, it doesn't know that the crafting ever completed. So you have to get your outputs back into your system somehow, whether it be through my magical automatically inserting into the system chest that I have here, whether it be through an importer bus or an importer, which we'll discuss possibly in the future. Well, we've already seen that. It's what we're using to take things out of here in the first place. Completely up to you. I like the dimensional chest system because it is a unified place, doesn't require cabling, doesn't require power, doesn't care where the output is. And this is just generally helpful anyways. Let's come over here and request that 3 stacks of sand that I wanted. So Control Shift click and do 3 stacks. And then if you hit Shift while clicking Start, if you hit Start, it's going to tell you what it's going to cost. It's a preview. But if I hit, let's do Control Shift. If I hit Shift when I hit Start, it's just going to start. It doesn't care. Not interested in you, not interested at all in what's going on. And if we look here, you're going to see that contains gravel, contains, you know, certain different items, because all of our sand probably got shot straight into here. And we already had gravel, actually. I forgot about that. So if I told you to make gravel, it would have taken that route. But since we already have 1.4 thousand gravel, we're good. You can see that sand is being built up pretty quickly, pretty easily. And so, yeah, I think overall we're good there. I think we are good. So there are ways that we could probably also automate these guys here for smelting, which would be ideal. Do not smelt that, please. And I'd love to figure out a way to do that. That is like the thing that I have next on my list. Because if we can do that, then we are going to be able to get free and pretty quick automatic smelting. So the The non-trivial component here isn't so much putting items in. That's pretty straightforward, but the problem is getting cooked items out. So there is a filter from Create, an advanced brass filter. The attribute filter, that's what it's called. Thank you, thank you. I'll take one of those. And if I right-click on it, we can take a look at attributes for things that have already been made that we already have. So let's take a look at stone. Stone is a result from smelting, right? Remember that because we want to smelt. So if I put in my reference item, which is stone, it's going to bring up a list of things that this one stone item and block can do. So the attributes of this item. So it's placeable. Yep. It can be haunted. So if I look through the haunting recipes here, look at that. It can be haunted into infested stone. So that's not wrong. It can be smelted. Yeah, it can be smelted into smooth stone. Is tagged with any of these tags. Is part of the creative group. Was added by Minecraft. So all of these are available. And so what we could do is we could do the opposite of this. Now this can get problematic, but we could do an opposite attribute list. So let's look at can be smelted and do the opposite of that and then add it. So the allow list contains one selected attribute which came from this, and that was cannot be smelted. We could do the same thing here. Can be smelted in a blast furnace, was added by thermal series, etc. Let's take a look at I'm trying to think of like a good item. Deep slate. Just smooth deep slate should also be a good reference item, I believe. Is placeable. It can be haunted. No, actually not all that helpful. Never mind. So we will do an allow list for this, and then we could put that exact attribute on a chute, on a funnel, brass funnel, to output items whenever they've been cooked. So if I grabbed this guy, this is just for testing, by the way, don't worry. And we grabbed some of that sand that I was looking at, right? If we put the sand in, it's not going to be pulled out until it has been smelted. I think. Honestly, this may just be easier to replace with machinery. I think that might just be our go-to move here, but I wanted to try this to see if maybe I could automate this easily. Thinking about it, though, that we're getting really close to nightmare territory. I may just end up making a smelter or something that could do it a little bit more easily. I'm not 100% sure. Let me wait for this, make sure that oh, yeah, no, there you go. It worked. So this does work. Again, getting things out of here might be kind of rough, but maybe not. Can you clone? We're just going to have to be really careful when we use these because we might run into some frustrations. Okay, so let's do right-click U, add a reference item, can be smelted, add the opposite of that, and save. And so now these should be the same. They don't stack, but that's fine. Let's make more brass funnels. And those will go into more depots. I know it's kind of a little funny the way that this is working, but that's okay. Let's grab some item pipes. Item pipe. So we can do an item. Actually, let's do pretty pipes. What am I doing? Item pipe is not necessary. Let's do extraction modules would be fine. Or a retrieval module would probably also work. No, because you're going to need to whitelist that. So let's not. Let's just do extraction modules. These are 2 mediums and a high. Let's take this medium and upgrade it to a high. And so with pretty pipes, we'll do that. And then we're going to need our dimensional chest. And so, let's see, we're going to need one of these and Enderium. Do I happen to have an extra smithing table? I'll just go ahead and make one. We have infinite resources for iron, at least. So we'll do our dimensional chest, and we're going to do another chest. I actually have an idea for this, right? So we can do another chest here. And then we'll do the following. Let me think on this. Let me think very carefully, actually. We may have to move this entire thing back a block, now that I think of it. That could be potentially very annoying. Let me think on that. So I have an alternative idea. It's a bit of a unstandard take, and I'm mostly just trying to avoid overusing thermal. So that's part of my motivation for this this implementation that I'm going to take on here. But what if we did heaters? So we could do external heaters on the backs, and we could even do them on the fronts if we wanted to, but we do need, you know, we're going to need some way to, of course, make our stuff work. And so we'll have a let's do a barrel. We'll have a barrel that has a crafter pointing into it. And that way we can actually distribute our automatic crafting a little bit. So if we look here, it'll just say gold barrel. That's fine. We can go ahead and hook these up. Like so. And then we can go ahead and grab rapid hoppers into our dimensional chest over here. Make sure that that is set to private. Frequency 1. Put a cogwheel in, disappears, good. And so we will rapid hopper all of our outputs into there. And we will just need levers to make everything more or less work. These may also be facing the wrong way now that I look at that, but that's okay, we can fix that. And we could just use a vanilla furnace here. Let's grab our wrench from... Actually, can you go? No, okay, that's fine. Let's grab our wrench here, and that's not helpful at all. Okay, that works too. We'll just grab the furnaces again. From here, do this. Now, hopefully you'll start preheating. Why don't you have power? Actually, that's a thought. Or is the... Oh, I wonder if this is actually the connection side for power. Yep, that would be correct. So we'll just leave those guys on all the time. Not the most efficient, sure, but not really all that concerned about every little micro efficiency at this point. And so now if I were to put in a bunch of sand here, let's also get an extraction module with the round robin sorting modifier and some pipes. The extract module here will prevent oversending, so we're good there. And so what we can do is cover that up. We're going to leave this open for us to be able to access that, though. We'll put this in here. This is going to be connected to the golden barrel, and we'll do the same here. And that's just going to make sure that anything that goes into the barrel will get round robined. So now if I put this in, it's going to go here. Is this the fastest? No, not particularly, but that's okay. I do wish that we could do... I guess we technically can, right? We could do stack limiters. So why don't we do that? Why don't we get stack limiters to prevent... A, prevent oversending for certain, but B, also be able to set like a stack size that we want to try to optimize to. So let's do like 16. And we'll do 16 here. So now if I put this whole stack in here again, it should split up 3 ways. And that's the most efficient that we could possibly do at this point. And honestly, I don't mind that. That's pretty cool. I think that works out pretty decently well. What I will do is get a trapdoor that is framed and put that texture on it. And then I know that's not facing the right way, but we can take care of that using this wrench. So now we can see in there anytime we need to. And I'll just go ahead and decorate this area here with some plankage. Like so. Perfect. So now anytime we need to go add a recipe, we can pretty easily do that. But otherwise, these will just be on their own doing their thing, and I think that will be just fine. Let's go ahead and replace this with some dirt or some spruce planks, and I will go ahead and do... Honestly, I don't really think this needs all that much else. I think this is fine as is, and I'm fine with it being embedded like that, a block. It didn't necessarily have to be embedded like that, but I just felt like it was nicer this way. You know, interestingly, we could do bellows. I think I may have some still. We could use bellows to speed this up a little bit, I guess, if we really wanted to. But it's already done with that stack, so I really can't complain all that much. And this will get faster as we replace our machinery around the house a little bit. But honestly, at this point, I truly think we are doing just fine for ourselves. So I will leave this exactly as is. I don't know if it's worth facading these or not. I don't even know what I would facade them with. I do like the look of the external heater, so we could always try that out, I guess. That would be a little weird, but it's not the weirdest thing I've ever done. Does that? No. Okay, good. I didn't think so, since these are technically tile entities. Barely, but they are. So I didn't think that would work, but I had my doubts, my curiosities, my hopes, etc. So let's see what I might want to cover this up with. Okay, so all of the aesthetics, all of the pretties, they're all handled, they're all taken care of. So at this point, I want to look into some smelting recipes that we'll want to do. So of course, I think the number one most obvious one is sand to glass. There is also the at-refined processors. These guys have to be smelted, if you'll recall. And we added recipes for these, but not for the smelted versions, because we didn't have a way to do that. And so this will greatly increase the speed at which we do stuff now. I think that'll be incredibly helpful. What was another thing that I was thinking of just now? I don't really think that there is much else that we will want to smelt at the moment, because everything else is machinery based. So our induction smelter will probably be hard at work doing not only the silicon, but also the quartz enriched iron. These are both induction smelter recipes, so we're probably going to do 2 different induction smelters. So I think that'll be just fine for now. And once we get these in, we should be able to test to make sure that this works exactly as expected. And my form of testing might be one that you expected. Who knows? So let's put these here. Like so. And so if I go to processor, of course, you know, I can test by looking to see, can you craft these? The answer is no. And the reason for that is because I'm big dum-dum, and I forgot to plug in my cables. Let's craft some more cables, because we're almost out. So let's do that. Wow, look at that. How convenient. And I have a crafter. Where is it? Right here. And I have to get a cable to it. Let's just take the short route. I don't really care about the aesthetics of this, to be honest. And so we can go... let's see. We should have our grid line right here again. We've seen this just on the opposite side. Oh no, that's not ideal at all. Not a big deal, but not ideal. Okay, put the crafter back. Put the patterns back in. And try again, but with feeling. Okay, crafter is live. Gold barrel shows up. I am trapped. Looks like everything worked out. Somewhat. Oh, I could have just gone out of there. Whatever. Okay, so now we should be able to see craftable. Craftable. Perfect. Delightful. Okay, so now that we've got all this stuff craftable, if I looked for, like, patterns, let's go ahead and request 60 patterns, and that's going to requiring us to make us some glass. So let's maybe do, like, 32 or 40. 40 is fine. So we're going to have to make glass. But I want to make sure that this works. So maybe we make some sand in bulk, or some glass in bulk. How much glass do we have? Let's do 30. And there we have it. For some reason, those are only extracting one at a time. Oh, because they're only inserting one at a time. Right. The crafter is pretty slow about inserting. It'll only insert as long as the last insert has been removed, which actually means that our stack limiting logic here is not at all required. So there we go. There we have it. Not even remotely needed. But everything should be going back into our system and looking great. Okay, so now that we know that that's going to work as expected, what I'd like to do is start teaching how to do the larger crafting components, because we're going to need to get into that at some point. So let's go ahead and try to get into that as early as possible. It is still difficult, but it is possible. Now, something you may have noticed, I'm dragging an item around. That's illegal, right? Like I'm just cheating items in? No, not at all. Actually, quite interestingly, the opposite of that. This is allowing us to pull in items as templates in case we don't have them. So this is actually giving me the advantage here of kind of preemptively making things easier without having to go through and do it the hard way. So let's go ahead and look at Reborn Storage. Reborn Storage is an add-on mod for Refined Storage that allows us to go through and create a large multi-block crafter structure. So it'll work a lot like this guy here, but it won't be so small, and it will be able to craft a lot faster. So I want to teach it how to make all of these things. Silicon is going to be a limitation of our crafting, but if I hover over here, you're going to see that there are some things that are highlighted in blue. Blue indicates a recipe that my machine and my system know how to craft. And if I was in a normal grid, not a pattern grid, if I Control Shift and hit plus here, this orange plus button, it will automatically request any of the items that are missing from my network but can be crafted. It will request that they get crafted. In this case, this is just a pattern, so that's not at all necessary. Let's grab a heat conductor recipe. Let's grab a crafting CPU recipe. We're missing some things here, so let's go ahead and get basic upgrade is actually really helpful, and then we'll do the crafting upgrade. As you see here, we already know how to handle some of these components, and if I do that and put that in here as well, I'm just trying to fit stuff where it will fit because we're running out of space. If I go to the crafting CPU now, you'll see that everything here, it knows how to craft, which is perfect. And then we're just going to need the crafting storage, which likewise knows how to craft everything here, the 1K storage parts and everything. So with those two recipes, we can now start to craft a bunch of Reborn Storage components. However, as much as we can, in fact, do that, it's not exactly helpful to us at this stage in the game because we still need a handful of them. So the crafting frame acts as a large frame that goes around the entirety of the unit. So we will probably need to spend at least one more episode utilizing some auto-crafting recipes to make the thermal smelter a little easier to use. And so I think I'm going to call the episode here because it's taken a little bit to make this one. And again, right now, I'm spread pretty thin. I've got a lot of stuff going on in real life and on streams and for side projects and for work. But I think that next episode, we're going to take this setup here and mirror it over here, but using thermals smelters, and that way we can automate some crafting recipes there. There's another shortcoming here, and that is the fact that quartz dust can only be made in the pulverizer. So we may have to sneak in one pulverizer between the two induction smelters and just make it as fast as we possibly can, which will be its own whole set of ordeals. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you guys in very soon. Take care.